Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something extremely exciting to check out. We have a brand new product from Recur. Not only a brand new product, but this is the beginning of their newer type of figures. You can see this is a Mosasaurus, and the name of the Mosasaurus is Hoffman. And this is really cool because this is very different from your standard Recur figures. Like, we've got a really nice box and everything presenting the figure really honestly quite beautifully. You can see the artwork and everything on the front of the box looks fantastic, as does our Mosasaurus. You can also see up here on the top we've got the Recur logo. Over here on the side, nothing really going on. It's just basically white. The underside again shows off the Mosasaurus name, and then the back is basically just, pretty much the same thing. So let's go ahead, pop this box open, and check out the very first of the brand new Recur figures. So straight away, something that's definitely different from older Recur releases. Inside, you can see we've got a really cool card that, accompanies the figure, and you can see here on the back some information on the Mosasaurus and everything like that. So that straight away is really cool. I definitely enjoy that. It's actually a really good, really solid, high-quality card. And then we've got our Mosasaurus itself, and look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous looking, honestly. I can say confidently as of right now, of course I haven't taken a look at any of the other figures so far in this line, but I would say this is the best Recur figure that I have in my collection. The sculpt on this looks fantastic, and the paintwork as well is really nicely done. There's definitely some very nice realistic and natural tones applied to the Mosasaurus. So I'm extremely excited straight out of the gate. Let's jump to a closer look and we'll check this out from there. So one of the most obvious aspects to this figure that is very different from older Recur releases is the fact that this is no longer like that soft, squishy sort of material that a lot of the older Recur models were made of. This one's a much more solid and actually genuinely does feel solid figure compared to what I'm used to when it comes to Recur. So, right out of the gate, that's really cool. Definitely a way higher quality feel to these figures compared to older stuff. But you can see when you look at the head sculpt, it looks really nice. You've got some very nice looking skin texture applied, as well as some very nice paint work. You can see we've got some beautiful blues up there on the snout of the Mosasaurus. They transition to a white as they lead back there behind the eye and then come down into the lower jaw. You can see more of that white, as well as some really subtle additions of the blues and some super subtle additions of an orangish or yellowish brown in there as well. It's a really nice, very realistic application of the paint. You can see the eyes are painted with a yellow, given a black pupil. The mouth of the Mosasaurus is in an open position. It does not have an articulated jaw or anything. It's just a totally stagnant jaw, but you can see the teeth are all sculpted individually, all painted individually, which is nice. You can see the skin stretching here on the inside of the mouth, painted with a really dark tone. And then you can see the tongue in there as well, which looks really good. And then if you take a look at the inside of the mouth on the upper side, again, some pretty nice looking detail. It's a little hard to get in there, though. Now, one thing that's interesting about this is looking at it, right away, it almost appears as though it doesn't have that extra row of teeth on the inside of the mouth. But since the mouth ends, right back there, it looks like you can kind of see the beginning of that row of teeth, and that, I think, is right around where, roughly where the teeth would begin. So it looks like the teeth are meant to actually be in there, so you can see, the first two teeth before it kind of disappears, because that's the back of the mouth of the Mosasaurus. So, at first glance, you might think, oh, they missed that, but in reality, I think they did capture it. It's just kind of the mouth ends basically right where the teeth would begin for that extra row of teeth on the upper jaw. But if you look up here at the top of the head, again, the skin texture looks really nice. You've got kind of rougher, rugged looking skin texture, almost slightly kind of looking armored a little bit here on the top, which is actually really cool. And you can even see more variation of blues, you've got a darker blue running along the snout, lighter blue as you move back there into the head. And then we transition to another variation of a blue, which actually looks different from, both of those various blues that we have up there. But moving back here into the body, I really like the way that they've painted this, because they actually seem to have a really dark wash, but it's super subtle. Maybe it's not really a super dark wash, but it's a darker variation of a wash, but it is so subtle with the way it's applied. It, highlights the detail absolutely in perfect fashion without being even remotely overbearing. There are also some light gray spots or white spots that you can see showing up here on the top of the Mosasaurus as you move along the back. You can even see a little bit of a darker tone kind of running along there. And if you see any paint on my fingers, I do apologize right now because I was painting and like the paint is absolutely solidified onto my fingers right now. Haven't been able to get it off quite yet. But as you move down into the side, again, the skin texture of this honestly looks fantastic. Look at how much detail is included in the skin texture of this Mosasaurus. It might be one of the most highly detailed when it comes to skin texture that I think I've ever seen. And I love that as you move down, the skin texture changes. Like the upper part of the body has a very different style of skin texture compared to what you see as you move down here into the side. Almost becomes a little bit more softer, maybe even a little bit more reptilian, I would say, when it comes to the way it looks compared to what we see on the top, which is really nice. Moving down into the flipper, you can see some nice creasing in the skin, and again, that very reptilian style scaling as you move out into the flipper, similar to what we see in the body right there. Again, variations of blues applied, really nice, very subtle variations of blues with lighter and darker shades. As we continue to move back, you see a very dark tone here, kind of outlining the darker blues moving along the side of the Mosasaurus, and then transitioning really nicely to a white for the underbelly. But I like that they've still applied some of the other variations of blues kind of following along that. In the upper part of the white area, you still see some light blues, which looks really cool. Again, the skin texture looks fantastic. You have all sorts of really slight kind of creases and stuff in the skin as you move along. As you move back here to the rear flipper, again, lots of impressive skin wrinkles and folds and stuff moving down here as you lead into the flipper. Again, you can see that that also looks really good as far as the sculpting goes. I don't know if it's going to focus this close. No, not really, but you can see that really reptilian sort of look to the scale detail in that area. As you move out, you see almost like a subtle row of kind of scoots moving along that area right there, and then we move out into the tail. You see more skin wrinkles and folds and stuff as you lead along out into the tail fin, and the tail fin honestly looks fantastic as well. Again, like, there is just so much skin detail out there in the tail of the Mosasaurus. And as you move along, you can just see it transition back and forth between so many different variations of blues, like really subtle variations to the blues. If we lead along the underside of the Mosasaurus, you can see, again, it starts obviously in the blue because of the tail, but then it transitions to that white, very thin line of the white following along the underside of the tail, but it opens up, of course, as we move back here into the body, and you can see the white is on the underside of the flippers right here. Really nice slight variations of blues showing up there. You can see it here like on the tips of the undersides of the flippers as well, but you can see the again, skin texture and everything looks really good down here. You can see the throat on the underside of the Mosasaurus as well, and if we turn it around, you've got another really nice shot here of the face. Again, that really nice paintwork that we had seen in the first side. You also have a darker tone that kind of like half circles back here behind the eye, which is actually something I didn't even notice on the first side. But as you move back here, you can even see like some tensing in the neck with the Mosasaurus opening the mouth. I would kind of expect some sort of tensing right there as it maybe is coming in for a bite to eat on something. So I really like that as well. The Mosasaurus does have its head turned away from us now on the right side, so the head's turning slightly toward its left. And in fact, the entire body kind of is facing in that direction, which you can see. And then as you move back, you can see the flippers aren't really in any sort of a different pose. I don't think, maybe slightly actually. You can see the other flippers back a little bit further than you see with this one, but it's not going to create a massive difference in the overall visual for this flipper. The stomach is kind of curved away from us like that, so you can kind of see how the skin is stretching over here, but we still have some of the folds and stuff as you move along. Again, the really beautiful skin detail moving back there into the rear flipper, and again, we lead out into the tail, which is now kind of curving away from us. So, man, I am so psyched to finally have some of these figures. I've honestly been eyeing them up for so many months now since they were first unveiled on us, and to say I'm excited to actually finally have one in hand would be an understatement, but to see how nice they are just has me so hyped. As far as a size goes on our Mosasaurus, if we go actually from the lower jaw to the tail, you were looking at about 12 inches or a little over 30 centimeters. You're not going to find much in the way of a height because, you know, it's a marine reptile. So if you look here from the ground to the top of the snout, about 2 3/4 inches or 7 centimeters, somewhere in that vicinity. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Recur Mosasaurus, and you can see again roughly what the size is. It's not a gigantic figure by any means, but it is a very nicely sized figure overall. And then if we bring in the PNSO version of the Mosasaurus, which is a pretty popular offering right now, you can see that the Recur version is definitely a little bit smaller. If we actually kind of bring them face to face here and kind of have them face off against each other, I think you can get a better idea as far as a size goes. They're actually kind of similar in size, but the PNSO version is just a good bit longer. Like, the overall body mass is fairly close. You can see that the head size and everything fairly close. Just a bit more length when it comes to the PNSO version. Honestly, I think most Mosasaurus in my collection probably won't compare too well to this one because a lot of them are pretty big, but you can see when it comes to like the Think Art version of the Mosasaurus, it's a little bit smaller than the Recur version, but kind of similar in size. Definitely a little smaller though. And to kind of give you another example of what I was talking about, here is the Nanmu Mosasaurus, which obviously is gigantic next to the Recur version. So for just a few more random comparisons, we'll just bring in, some standard marine reptiles that some people might have here. We have the Lioplurodon from the Walking with Dinosaurs series. We've also got an absolute classic with the Invicta Pliosaur, which you can see is a bit smaller. And then rounding things out with one more comparison, we have a Bullyland Plesiosaur. Again, just kind of trying to grab a few different marine reptiles that maybe somebody might have, some of you guys might have in your collection that would compare well with this absolutely gorgeous Mosasaurus. So this brand new Recur Hoffman, the Mosasaurus, is awesome, honestly. To say I am impressed would be an understatement. I've always been a fan of the Recur line. I've always liked their larger, kind of softer, squishy figures. I've been a pretty big fan of those for many, many years, but these new figures, again, they're so different from what they were offering previously. They're just so much more highly detailed. They are of a much higher quality feel. Again, they are a little flexible, like slightly, ever so slightly, pretty much the standard that you would expect when it comes to a figure like this. The figure is made of PVC, so again, some flex would be expected, and you have a little bit of that like in the tail of the Mosasaurus, but overall not much, and it's a much more solid, again, high quality compared to the older, softer, squishy figures that Recur had previously. But the sculpt, again, is out of this world when it comes to fine detail. There is so much to be found on this figure in every area. The skin texture is definitely some of the most impressive I think I've seen on a Mosasaurus release. On top of that, it's got a nice natural pose, just kind of swimming, making a left-hand turn, kind of making it look like it's pursuing something, trying to grab itself a meal. And we have some very nice paintwork on this one with all sorts of variations of blues, lighter and darker shades. There's a lot of variation to the blues as you move through. I feel like you really need to get the figure in a nice light and just kind of inspect it to really appreciate how many different variations of blues have been applied to this. There's also a wash on it, kind of like a darker wash, which helps to even add more color to it and highlight the detail. And then you also have the lighter tones of the underside, which again, that's exactly what you would expect for a marine reptile like this. The darker tones on the upper side, lighter on the underside. So as a whole, this figure is awesome, and I am so psyched to see everything else that Recur is releasing. I believe right now they've got like 5 figures, 3 of which are released now. I have the other 2 here to review as well, and then there's 2 more coming, I think, next month, the end of September maybe, which would be the T-Rex and the Dimorphodon would be coming then. This Mosasaurus is absolutely fantastic if you ask me, and I feel like everybody needs to give this one a shot. So if you are interested in picking one up, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this from Amazon. So make sure you check that link, go grab this gorgeous Mosasaurus, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.